Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of UGASports Live. My name is Radi Nabulsi. I'm joined by Dayne Young and Jim Donnan, the former Georgia football head coach, the Hall of Famer himself, the hardest working man in Athens. If you ever go out there on a 100-degree day and look on the tennis courts, you'll see Coach Donnan out there. He's busting his butt every day on the tennis courts, making us all look bad, and I resent it. I really do. It angers me to be 50 years old and get my butt kicked by a
I don't play
man who older than me. It's not fair.
I don't play every day, but I played a lot, so I can still move around, but not that great. But we're going to talk a lot of ball today. We got Dayne Young over there talking golf, trying to get the Live Foundation going there with Greg Norman. He's meeting with him.
Oh, that's the enemy in these parts. I'm at East Lake Golf Club in Atlanta doing some work with the Tour Championship, and I'll apologize now if I have spotty internet throughout this. So this is going to be a ride. We'll see.
Yeah, we don't want to talk to you anyway, but we do want to talk about, give a quick shout out to our podcast sponsors, of course, Academy Brewing Company. Go by, check them out when you get a chance. Athens Ford, if you need a new or pre-owned vehicle, get to them quickly. Dead Soxy, I'm hoping a lot of you fathers, folks out there, got some Dead Soxy socks. If not, now is the time to go get them. And, of course, Your Pie. It's Tuesday. Go get your Pie pizzas ordered while you have the chance. Coach, we have a lot of stuff to talk about. The fact that the season's 10 weeks away, or just about. We're kind of we'll be getting into those single-digit weeks, 9 weeks, 8 weeks, 7 weeks, and every little bump, is like, it's Easter, then it's the Masters, then it's Father's Day. Each time you get just a little bit closer, had Memorial Day weekend not too long ago. It's getting closer and closer. And I just saw this morning that Stetson Bennett's out of the Peyton Manning camp, not the quarterback camp. I don't want to get everybody hyped up, but I'm starting to feel like it's not that long slog away. Now we're trying the boat slowly turning towards the season instead of looking back at the last season. Of course, still want to look back at last season's championship, but now it's kind of focusing forward a little bit.
Yeah, you got to always think about certain landmarks getting you ready for the season. The Manning camp, the last couple quarterbacks here, Jake Fromm went, JT Daniels, I think. Now Stetson, and I think 12 quarterbacks from the SEC are going to be there along with 36 others around the country. It's just an amazing camp that they have. They have over 600 people come to it. A lot of them are younger kids, but the idea is they have nightly workouts for the better quarterbacks that come, like these guys here that are instructors. So it'll be fun to watch how Stetson does.
What do you learn at that?
Nothing. It's just a babysitting camp for the younger quarterbacks, and I'm sure that when I said nothing, I'm sure it gives you a chance to compare yourself to the other quarterbacks around the country for sure. Like they do some tests and stuff like that, but it's more of a camaraderie thing. Get to know the other quarterbacks, and you have a good experience. And you get good exposure there, Peyton and Eli look at you, and I've had Archie Manning before has made comments about certain guys that I've heard that were pretty much on sync as far as what happened when they ended up getting drafted and all. But there's nothing like being there with the other guys and seeing what your arm strength's like, what your accuracy's like, all that stuff. So it's a good deal, and I think certainly been very good over the years. They've had it for a long time, and it's good to see Stetson be recognized like that. But then the next thing we'll have is SEC Media Days, and then it'll be time to crank it up. But I know one of the things that's really exciting here right now the last couple weeks has been just the amount of good players that have been here on campus testing and finding out what they can do compared to the other guys we're recruiting. One of the things everybody talks about as a metric is the 40-yard dash, and that certainly gives you a good idea. But the standing broad jump, the vertical jump, the shuttle run, those are all really good indicators of a guy's athletic ability. if you don't have any explosion in today's football world, you're going to have a hard time because you got so much strength and these guys are so strong that you've got to have the agility to go with it and the explosiveness. So if all of a sudden you're a defensive back and you got a plus 35-inch vertical jump, Kirby Smart's going to be looking at you as long as you run under 4.6 as a junior, and then hopefully he gets better than that. But quickness, explosion, all that stuff is good, and nothing like having a little card on file of this is what this guy did as a 9th grader, 10th grader, 11th grader, and the more you get him around, the better you're going to know about him.
Yeah, we just had the underclassmen combine or underclassmen challenge, where we invited the top underclassmen in the nation to come to Atlanta. They came from all over the country: Florida, California, Texas, the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, Midwest. We were just loaded with players out there, over 100 of them. And there was an offensive lineman. And, of course, a lot of them you don't know. I mean, we're talking to kids who just finished their freshman year, just finished their sophomore year. Very, very young guys who are going to be a junior next year. There was one offensive lineman just kind of kicking people's butts. He's very quiet, doesn't make all, would just put guys on the ground and not say anything about it. Whereas a lot of these guys kind of chirp and let the defense know they beat him or vice versa. And so they're going to get water, and I walk up behind him. I'm like, hey, I'm looking at my list here. I'm like, number 86. Hey, Mr. Daniels. He turns around. He's very quiet voice. I'm like, Jonathan Daniels, have you heard from Georgia recently? He's like, yes, sir. I was there yesterday. They offered me. I'm like, man, here I was thinking I found this diamond in the rough, coach. I was going to tell you about him. And he apparently camped at Georgia the day before, kicked a bunch of people's butts. And, of course, he had that explosiveness that you're talking about. Georgia put him through the paces. They did a evaluation of him, and sure enough, now he's got a Georgia offer. So the Georgia's having a lot of guys come up and do the 7-on-7s, and there's a really big standout. The coaches get to watch them there, but they're also, like you said, they're hosting these things. And Georgia has been on a tear in recruiting. I feel really bad for Ryan Wright, one of our analysts. He was asked a kind of a fact or fiction question about, how's Georgia's class going to be? Will they have a top 5 class this year? And he's like, I don't think they will. They're really far out, and they just recruited so well. It's about time they had a class that's 6 to 10, but maybe not top 5. Georgia's had 4 commits in the last 8 days, and they pulled 2 kids from Alabama, another kid they wanted that was looking at Tennessee and Auburn. They've just been racking them up, coach. And Georgia's on a hot streak right now in recruiting.
Yeah, and it's going to get even hotter. I think just the thing that they've been waiting on is to check some of these guys out in camp and see what they've done. A lot of them have already been here last year. So, but there's nothing like coming over here and getting a workout and seeing what you can do. I know we've mentioned it before. Lewis Seen just made his mark here on a on-campus workout. I mean, there was some question about certain things, and then once you see a guy in person, boy, it's just nothing like it. So it's a fun time for coaches because you're really enhancing your profession and your program by, your ability to evaluate guys. And boy, we've got some good evaluators here, and not just on the coaching staff, but the other guys that help them. And when you have 200 or 300 guys here at one time each day, it's very important that Coach Smart has a chance to see each one of them, and he's got to be moving around, and they got people working back and forth. So, and then if all of a sudden the guy is a player, then you got to get him his picture made in his uniform and all that stuff. That makes him feel good. So equipment guys are on point too. So Gage Witten and Will Wells, all those guys are doing a good job. John Michaud, they do a good job getting these guys uniforms. And boy, we could have so many uniform combinations now. You see the all white, you see the red pants, the black pants. I saw one kid had a black jersey with red pants on. That's not going to happen. But he was all jacked up. He liked what he had on, and then he'd sit on a throne. It's just it's a thrill of a lifetime for these kids to have that. God, I'm sitting here in front of the national championship trophy, and I got a chance to come to Georgia. I mean, it's really impressive.
Let's point out, too, that one of those recruits that committed in the last 8 days is from the Columbus, Georgia area, just across the river in Phoenix City, Alabama. And I say that only to say, when you start looking at what Dell McGee's done in his old hometown, with Michael Williams, with Jackson Meeks from Phoenix City a few years ago, that's Georgia territory, locked down.
Yeah, and he's getting ready to get Kelton Smith too. I think that offensive lineman, I think that's his name. Thinking about I was talking to a guy for a national piece here a couple days ago. He was doing some information about what did coaches used to do in the past when you didn't have all these camps and all these rivals ratings and all that stuff, and the huddle where you could get the instant tape on. And I was talking about the coaches in the old days you should have an area, and that was your area, and you might recruit running backs, quarterbacks, defensive linemen, but whoever's there. Now it's so much specific running backs for Dell McGee and wide receivers for McClendon and core. But the one thing that Dell McGee is as big a part of this program as next to Kirby Smart is his ability to recruit the other guys. He was a lead dog on Justin Fields. So many of these guys. He's just kind of that father away from home guy that's been a high school coach that can relate to the coaches so well. And I'm not just pointing him out. We got plenty of those guys, but I think sometimes guys get, and the new defensive back coach did a great job on that Harris kid. But in the interim period there, Dale kept things straight and got this guy to the point where once he knew that, we were going to have a good secondary coach there come in. So I can't give enough kudos for Coach McGee and what he does recruiting-wise, and just overall with the program, the way he represents around the community and everything, and what he does for these players off the field. It's just it's going to be tough when we lose him. I know he's going to be a head coach very quickly.
Yeah, that's one situation where you're very excited to see a guy like that get his shot, but at the same time, it just kills you when he leaves his organization. He is so very talented. I do want to mention, Coach, a couple of those guys that are committed to Georgia. You mentioned working them out. Peyton Woodring, the kicker from Louisiana, Georgia had him in on a camp, and they loved him. And he had just been to Alabama. He had camped there. Alabama liked him. They offered him. He was probably going to commit to Alabama pretty quickly, but Georgia was able to get in. I don't say last second because he's got time, but before the Alabama offer and commitment, Georgia was able to drive a wedge in there, and now Peyton Woodring is committed to Georgia. That's a kicker. They really like him. Josh Miller, offensive lineman out of Chester, Virginia. If you look at his tape, you're like, why is he not rated higher? And it's a situation where maybe rivals and the other recruiting services, our rankings don't match what's the rankings inside the Athletic Association. They really like Josh Miller as a guy who can play off, guard, tackle, maybe even center. CJ Allen, we definitely maybe have him underrated. 3-star linebacker out of Barnesville, Georgia. It's a guy, Josh Miller came in, CJ Allen came in. They blew up their camps. The coaches loved what they did when they worked out. And of course, you mentioned AJ Harris. He's one of the top defensive backs in the nation. He was definitely high up their chart. So I always tell people, I don't want to run down rivals. I know our guys, they do a great job being analysts, but the priority that Georgia puts on a kid sometimes is the same priority you would.
So ridiculous. I'm glad. That's your site and all, but there's not one person that watches this show, I hope, that really has any doubt about what Kirby Smart would offer a guy a scholarship. Look at Lane McConkey. Come on, people. If he thinks the guy's a player, then who cares what the stars are? And that's the way I felt like Randy McMichael. I can go through 50 of them that didn't have quite the ballyhoo. And here's the thing I think about this Miller. Is that the kid, the offensive lineman? He plays at a really small private school up in Virginia, and they don't get near those schools don't get near the national pub unless they're a high-ranking team. So right. An offensive lineman on a team in a 1A school, it's not the ballyhoo that maybe a guy at a big school is going to get. And there's where Stacy coming in as a new O-line coach, had an existing relationship because he had seen him in North Carolina. He'd come to their camp, I think. And then when we got him down here, everybody just jumped on him because of what, he can move and he's got good size and explosion. So that was just kind of a pennies from heaven type deal because, it doesn't matter who else wants him as far as we're concerned. It's just the fact that he meets the criteria, what Stacy wants and what Kirby wants. And then the kicker, there's nothing like seeing a guy kick and watching his timing and the pressure that's on him with all the coaches watching him. You got to deliver, man. You got to make this kick like you kicking to win the conference championship and all that. And they put that kind of heat on. They don't really talk to him about it, but, you got all these guys watching you. But the thing he's looking at is opportunity. Pod's going to be graduating this year, although he could come back, but I think he'll probably go out. But, there's a good opportunity for a kicker here, and why not? You're going to go to a place that scores a lot of points. You're going to be kicking off a lot, and you're going to get a lot of exposure. And you don't want to be kicking for a team that, all they do is struggle to score touchdowns and have a winning program. So here's the guy leaves Louisiana. He's smart. He's coming in here to a good situation for him. I don't think anybody could come to a better situation as far as a place kicker than replacing Pod and coming in. Zirkel's still here, and he's a good, solid kicker, and he can kick off. But I think they really feel good about this young man.
Yeah, Coach, you mentioned Ladd McConkey. Here's a question from YouTube. Will Ladd McConkey get a look at punt returner? That's from Frosty Tavern.
Sure he will. We got 3 deep in punt returners. We got Kieras, who's this steady as a rock and very close to breaking a couple last year. And now with his injury out of the way, and then Ladd's very sure-handed, and that's what you look at first. You got to be able to run up and run underneath a short kick and keep it from rolling and have the guts and decision-making process. And then I think we got other guys that can do it for sure. But who was the other receiver that was coming back that's been hurt?
Arian Smith.
Dom, his freshman year, he was the punt returner starter. And so you got 2 guys that have started and returned kicks in the SEC, and then Arian Smith can do it. There's a lot of guys that can do it. So we're going to be good on punt returns, and I think we'll be returning a lot of punts. I think our defense is going to have a lot of success stopping the other team.
I did want to get to one of the other questions in that chat there because we were just talking about those guys and recruits. Tommy Williams says, how big was C.J. Allen on the board for the Dogs? C.J. Allen's one of the top prospects in the nation. That's in their minds. And in our rivals' rankings, he's not as high. So when you take a kid that early, I know they're after Troy Boyles, Aguero. There's other guys that want an inside linebacker, but when you take that guy early, that means he's on your board. In other words, he had a committable offer. You saw all the coaches get excited. You saw Glenn Schumann tweeting out before the announcement came down. So I don't know if he's 1, 2, or 3 on their board. That's the gold. Our holy grail of information will be able to get a photograph of their recruiting boards to see how they have them. We never get those, but
that's none of your business. None of your business. None of your business. Nobody's business, but it's certainly. I do feel like that you got good contacts. So people tell you a lot. They ask your opinion about that rivals camp and what you were up there. That helps to know what a kid's talking about and things like that. I know we had a question. I don't want to miss it. That we were talking in our preliminary pre-show talk about some questions. One guy asked, "What are the new rules this year?" And I want to make sure I get that understood because
hang on. Let me pull up his name here because I want to be nice. God, we got a lot of questions. Hey, it's our buddy Dog in France, Coach. He says, any major rule changes we need to know about? Do you want to see?
That's a good question. The one thing that's going to happen on targeting this year is it can be appealed. So if you got a targeting call and you're thrown out of the game for the next week, it can be appealed. And basically, if a player is disqualified for targeting in the second half, the conference at the request of the team may appeal the foul to the national coordinator. the crown of the helmet is now defined as the top segment of the helmet. So they got to be careful that, that you just don't hit with your face and all. It's got to be the crown. All right. Another one is the Kenny Pickett rule, the Pittsburgh guy who faked the slide and kept going and scored a touchdown. Now, if you fake a slide, you become dead right there. You just can't do that to try to be then blocking below the waist, defensive team exceptions, but players aligned in a stationary position within the 1 yard of the line of scrimmage, at least particularly partially within the tackle box, may you can block below the waist, but anything outside of the tackle box now you can't. So you can't go down there and as a wide receiver and try to just dive at a guy's feet.
He had a second question, Coach. He said, how long until kickoffs are banned? Do you ever see them banning kickoffs for safety's sake?
They've made some really good rules on that. They don't let you have the wedge anymore. And they, we've always had blocking above the waist since last 15 years. It's just a part of football. I don't know. Some of these new leagues don't do it and let them start, but I'd be okay if you started on the 25-yard line. Defensive coaches want you to start on the 10, but 25-yard line would be good. But he's got some really good questions there. I think some things that I would love to see is like the pros, defensive pass interference. I think it should be a spot foul, but probably never happen.
Yeah, we have a lot more questions. Dayne, I'll let you grab some of those from the dog vent, but first I want to mention our good friends over at Academia Brewing Company. I mention them every week as a great place to go see, and there's always something going on over there. Last night they had game night. It's free admission. They have just specials on beer and cocktails. They have board games, card games, retro video games, cornhole, collectibles, all kinds of crazy stuff going on over there. And they're always introducing new beers. Their newest beer is the Born to Fall Cold IPA. It's their Born to Fall series, and this is their cold IPA that you'll really like. There's just so much stuff going on at Academia Brew Company. They did have an AC issue, but their AC issue is fixed. Their air conditioning happened for a minute. But comedy shows, they got one coming up on June 27th. Tickets are $8 ahead of time, $10 the day of the show. They're always doing comedy shows. They have car shows out there. Always something for you to do. And again, the food is fantastic. The atmosphere is great. They've got new murals on the walls out there you need to check out. The place looks great. It's growing by leaps and bounds. It's becoming a landmark in Athens. So many people are coming up, especially for the car shows, to check it out. Just go and be a part of the community. And they give back to the community a lot, too. So when you get a chance, swing by Academia Brewing Company. Check them out on Facebook. You can see all their new stuff they got coming up. And, of course, it is also Tuesday. I need to mention them at the beginning of the show so people can order their pizza so that their stuff's ready by the end of the show. But it's Tuesday, so go to YourPie, YourPie.com, use the YourPie app, and order their peach and prosciutto pizza. I know it sounds weird, but, when you heard about pineapple and ham or Canadian bacon on a pizza, you thought it was gross. Then you tried it and you liked it, if you're a weirdo. But
Speak for yourself. It's great.
You would, of course, it would be you. But no, seriously, try the peach and prosciutto pizza. It is phenomenal. It wins awards. They bring it back every year. They'd like to let people. They have competitions and said, "Hey, look, create a pizza, and if it's people really like it, we'll put it into the rotation and people can order it." This was one of their early winners, and people loved it so much they kept asking for it to come back. So now, when the peaches are ripe, when they have a good supply, they bring back the peach and prosciutto pizza, and folks love it. It's like, again, Coach, it's one of those. Like you said, those kind of bookmarks in the summers, like Easter, Mother's Day, Memorial Day, Father's Day, SEC
My
Media
birthday.
Day. Peach and Prosciutto Day is back. The pizza, so it's here. So when you get a chance, order it today on Tuesday because you get double points.
It's the balsamic that really makes it like pop. I think,
Yeah.
because like it's a sweeter pizza. I get that, but like the combination is pretty flawless. And I also want to give a quick shout out to Classic City Eats because just how quick and convenient they are. My high school's coming up to Athens for a function this week, and they were looking for a spot to eat for a big group of people on short notice. And so I just texted Josh at Classic City Eats and says, "This is something that y'all could do." He said, "Yeah, we could do that. Have him give me a call." Like, that's so cool. Not everybody is that way.
And that would be the best meal they've had all year.
Hey, Coach, before we get to those questions, Coach, I was looking at Georgia's schedule because I'm kind of at the phase where I'm going through schedules for each team, matchups that I forgot that are happening, things like Auburn, Penn State. That's just going to be fascinating from like what happens to these programs. As a coach, when you look at a schedule, do you think of it in beginning, middle, end, or do you think of it in thirds? Or I guess just from a very broad standpoint, when you see the season ahead, where do you process that in your brain?
Well, first games is the one that you just really putting a lot of emphasis on because it really sets the tone. But, we always used the first 4 games of the season. We did a spring scouting report on them and then a summer scouting report on them. So you had all that stuff from last year that you could use with what you have this year. Then after the 4th game, usually you're just going on everything that they do, recently. And got the same personnel in there that, the first 3 games, the first going before that, you really don't know a lot about the personnel because you got younger guys. But you also have a Bible or a category, of what this team's done in the past. And you look hard at that as far as your scouting. And, they did this back in 2020 and, things like that, just on Thursday when you do some renewal. But as far as the overview of the schedule, segment the first 4 games as far as preparation, then really putting that must-win game, a game that just, really could be a team that's probably as good as you are, if not better. Put a lot of emphasis on them in the summer. At this point, Georgia's certainly going to be favored over everybody, but that's the way I would look at and like I've told you so many times, even though we didn't do that great, but there wasn't a day in my life for the 5 years I was a coach that I didn't work on something about Florida. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but it always gave you a chance to think about them a little bit. So schedule-wise, you just once the season gets going, you can't worry about who you're playing 3 or 4 games down the road. But more than anything, the first 4 games.
Is it harder to prepare for a first-year head coach like a Dan Lanning or one that's been a coach for a long time like a Mike Leach?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of what ifs there with a new. But we certainly know a lot about Lanning, having coached with him. But I would say the first-year coach, just because you don't know what they're going to do as far as their coordinators, is he going to run his system or is he going to run the coordinator system? You do have the benefit of all these games on spring games, at least seeing some basic stuff. But in the case of Lanning, you know, they're probably going to run the Auburn offense or some form of the Memphis offense. That's where that Kenny Dillingham had a prior relationship with Coach Lanning at Memphis. So if it's Memphis, they really throw the ball down the field a lot. If it's Auburn, you know, a lot of screens, things behind a lot of scrimmage under Gus Malzahn. But then defensively, you got to think he'll run a similar package to us. But I'll tell you one thing. It's pretty obvious that Dan Lanning has hit the road running. You look at some of the guys that he's got visiting out there and the recruits that they're in on, just incredible. And certainly a lot of credit goes to Marshall Malco. If you just look at Marshall, and certainly every coach is a beneficiary of the place where he's working. I mean, I'm a lot better recruiter at Georgia than I would be at Kansas State. You know what I'm saying? It's just you've got who you're selling. Nothing against Kansas State, but you know, I was there for 21 years, dog years. Every year you're there, 7 years off your life. When I was coaching there, man, we were struggling hard, but they got better. But it was the way it was. But getting back to
it was 3 years, Coach. Wasn't 21.
Getting back to Marshall, if you look at, he was involved in 2 number 1 classes here as the director of personnel. And this last year, he was at Texas A&M. You can talk all you want to about the NIL, but they also had the best recruiting class probably ever as far as rankings. And now he's out at Oregon doing the same thing. The guy knows how to identify players and get the right guys in there. I mean, coaches got to recruit them and all, but that's fantastic to have that on your resume and have a guy like that. And that's one of the reasons why Lanning went after him. I mean, he's kind of the director of like football manager out there, general manager. I mean, he's not necessarily the personnel guy, but very good move getting Marshall there. And certainly we're doing, Radi knows who's over here now. We got great personnel.
Either Raper or Matt Godwin, those two
those two guys are all state, Nealon and Matt. And that's one thing. Kirby's always got people waiting in the wings to step up. But just a little shout out there to Marshall. That's pretty strong. 3 different places now. He's been right up there.
I'm not talking about him ever again, Coach, because he was here. He could have been a good source for me. He never gave me anything. So,
yeah, that's why he got #1 recruits. He didn't screw him up.
But I do want to shout out to he was very good while he was here. But Nealon Raper, the new director of ops at UGA, fantastic, and Matt Godwin, that's a guy who I'm sure if he was sitting in our room, he'd be like, "Why do your rankings are terrible? Here's who we like," But Matt's got those classes, like you said, those camps.
Yeah, it's like today, Matt Godwin's got a list of everybody that's in there to get, and he works around with Kirby and checks off to make sure he sees all those guys. And then if anybody pops up that they weren't sure, didn't know about, then they will contact Matt, and Kirby will go over there and make sure that he checks him out too. Obviously, the position coach is going to do it, but very well organized. It's impressive.
I can't imagine what he does. I do want to share a screenshot here with our buddy HBTFD89, who's got us on his big screen in his Bulldog room. I appreciate that.
That's impressive. Go Dogs.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for that. His name's Dub on Twitter, so y'all give him a follow when you get a chance.
Yeah, good.
A couple other schedule observations. Did you know that Auburn is only playing in 3 states this season, has 8 home games and 4 road games? There's a chance that Auburn will not have to fly anywhere in the regular season.
Well, I know they're in the state of confusion. State of
just teed him up.
State of depression and state of anxiety. What is the other state? Oh,
that's 3. You hit them off.
No, we're done. We're done here.
Auburn is got some serious issues now. I mean, any way you look at it, they did a good job. And can you imagine just what if Tank Bigsby had stayed in bounds instead of running out of bounds against Alabama? That game's probably over with. That guy's probably got a new contract for life after beating Nick Saban in his first year. And then after that, they continued on a downward trend and ended up losing the bowl game. And now they're trying to decide whether they're going to keep him over this. And they are, but I'd say he's living on Tulsa time.
Another team that only travels to 3 states.
One real quick. Their recruiting ranking with their team is 73rd in the nation. They have 2 commits.
Are they that high?
There's only 128 teams, Coach, or 130-something teams. Yeah, they're 73rd. They have 2 commits. And here's the thing. They got Braden Joyner, who's a fantastic offensive lineman, but he's out of Auburn, Alabama.
You don't want to kick somebody when they're down, but let's kick them. Let's kick them down. Man. Couldn't happen to a nicer team.
Another of your favorites, Coach, Texas only plays in 3 states this season, and they don't travel outside the state of Texas until October 22nd when they go to Stillwater.
Well, that's going to be a difficult trip going up to Stinkwater, but it's going to be always tough for Texas playing up there. But, I think Texas right now, from my standpoint as an Oklahoma fan, I'm really enjoying the misery that Texas is undergoing. It's just impressive to me to see them have a losing season with all the financial background they got and everything. Keep it up, Sark. Keep on losing.
Man, we got so many questions about Texas and Arch Manning. I'm gonna keep asking questions there, Dane. Keep going through your things. I'm gonna try to condense them all into just one or two.
Yeah, I've got one of those too. PTech 1 is one of those, so we'll add him to the list of.
Yeah, we need to have the last 5 minutes on Arch Manning. We can do that.
This is from OU Herschel Walker. Coach, happy belated Father's Day. Is there an NCAA limit to the number of analysts a team can have? How many can you have on offense, defense, and special teams? Well, he said, how many does Georgia have on offense, defense, special teams?
I don't know that there's any limit. The only limit is for graduate assistants. You can only have 2, 4 total graduate assistants. But as far as analysts, there's no – you can have as many as you can afford. Florida's gone out the budget. I mean, they're spending a lot of money on analysts and people like that. But
game-changing coordinators, Coach. Get it right.
But game day – you can only have 20 headsets. So a lot of those guys can't be on headsets. So you got 10 on offense and 10 on defense and the head coach. Maybe it's including the head coach. But and that sounds like a lot. But when you look at so many people that are involved, like the offensive line coach has a GA that he's watching the offensive line, and quarterback coach is helping out with Monken. And Monken's a quarterback coach too, along with. But you got to have good. You got to have really good communications on the headset. And I always liked Oklahoma because about the second half, I just take the headset off, except when we had to call a play on offense. So I was eating hot dogs in the second half most of the games, but. Did I ever tell you the story about – I think I've told it about the time that Switzer got me on the headset?
I don't know.
Was that to get a kid to call a play for a guy?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
The girl, the secretary called Switzer and told him to call up and tell me to put the guy in the game. And I said, is he eligible? And he's a defensive back, and Switzer teaching him to play, and he went in the game. Scored a touchdown. That's the only time Switzer ever talked to me in 5 years on the headset. I thought he was busting me, but it was true. He never even talked to me once. So.
He gave you complete carte blanche to do everything. So
he was good, but we talked a little bit during the week. But what do we got next?
This is from Lady A Dog, one of our great posters at UGASports.
Lady A Dog, that's good.
That's fantastic.
I think she is down in Cairo. I think she's a syrup maker, if I remember that right.
She's Lady Gaga. Here we go.
She says, can we bring back the women's clinic?
I think the women's clinic is one of the most fun things I ever did. We did it at Marshall and some other places, and it was fun. We started here, and then I think Coach Rick kept it going. But it's kind of it's not a pain, but it's something you got to schedule and have time to do. But it's hard to get it in the schedule. But it really, I never will forget the first ladies clinic we had. This guy came to it and wanted to know why we wouldn't let him in. And I said, it's for ladies only. He said, well, you're discriminating against the men. And we said, well, we'll just have to. But the most embarrassed I've ever seen a coach probably was Chris Selfo, our offensive line coach. Every coach had a little bitty segment that he was doing something. And he was explaining the quarterback center exchange. And this one woman said, hey, is it okay if I come up there and you take the snap from me? Woo! She didn't know what to do now. She came up there and was ready to put the ball and snap it up to him. And he said, well, I think probably we should just do the shotgun snap. That was pretty cool. Pretty cool.
That is a good point, though, Coach. I think the women's clinic, well, I'm going to get on my soapbox real quick. UGA needs to open up the indoor practice facility for people to actually go in and see it. Maybe a viewing period or something. Just not a practice period, but just a time that you can walk in and look around. It's impressive. Let the fans come in. Maybe it's 1 hour once a week or once every 2 weeks where folks just walk around, show a tour. But I love the women's clinic. It teaches people a lot about it. But also, I remember when I think Clemson had like a men's clinic, and you can bring these couch coaches in, the one who, second guess everything you do. Like when you were at the game last year and everybody up in the stands is telling the offensive coordinator how to run the ball and all that stuff. Let them sit through 5 minutes of you guys talking about formations and plays, and let them realize that it's a completely different language when you guys start talking football and all that goes into it. And I just think it would do wonders to take the most diehard folks and kind of teach them how complicated this thing can be. And I love the women's clinic. I think it's great.
It probably would be, but it's not worth it really for the coaches. But
you can make a fortune off of it.
For the women's standpoint, I mean, the coaches, like I know Oklahoma State still has a camp for the in Notre Dame, and where they boosters come in and put on uniforms and go through the locker room and do everything and go through drills and show them how they scout teams.
Yeah, let the players do it and give it to them in NIL money.
Yeah, they pay them a lot of money to come in and do that, and then have a coach come in and speak to them. I know I've been to different places and spoken, and then guys like you're talking about would ask you some questions, and because I wasn't at that school, I had a lot of fun busting them and challenging them on a few things. And like one guy, I said, "What do you do?" And he said, "Well, I'm a CPA." I said, "Well, you ever use a calculator?" So here we go. Let's go. What's next?
Hey, Roddy, if you're going to be critical of not having the indoor practice facility accessible at times, which I do agree with you, we should also praise that Sanford Stadium has been made to where it's an icon, a landmark for every day out of the year. Most stadiums don't get used that often for the public. Sanford Stadium's that every day on campus, and Georgia's done a really good job of making that possible for the
students. That's great.
So kudos to them.
I do love every May seeing all the kids walk down and get their pictures in front of the stadium, their caps and gowns. They just
that's awesome.
On Instagram. That looks good.
That's very unique. Here's a question from UJ1195 that I missed last week, so apologies for that. It says, Coach Donnan, who do you think will turn out to be the next Nakobe or Roquan at Georgia as a linebacker?
I hope somebody does. I mean, those are hard to come by. Those guys are great, but we got some good young players here. I think a guy's close to not misses I've seen around here in the last couple of years. Jalen Walker out of Salisbury, North Carolina, will play a lot this year. I think he's going to be a big time player.
This is a good question from Howard Eubanks on YouTube. Which interior defensive lineman best complements Jalen Carter?
It's going to be really big for somebody to do that on the level that Jordan Davis and what we had last year. So they just can't double team Carter. Put a lot of emphasis on him, but I think we're going to have plenty of guys that can fill in there, and we got some big guys. I saw on Facebook today, Coach Scott had his defensive lineman out for the coaches can have guys out to their houses and feed them and everything. I think it's good for morale. If I take a picture of that and send it to you, can you put it up here on this and let them see those people?
I can do that. Send it to me.
You do that. I'm going to say to answer the question with my guess, and of course, it's always a guess. I like Tyrion Ingram Dawkins and Nazir Stackhouse. I think Stackhouse is just so fast. He busted a couple times. Coach, help me out here. You'd see him towards the end of the game, and he busts through the line. Is the offensive line tired, and I'm just giving him too much credit, or is he really that quick?
What are you talking about? Yeah, he runs track. I mean, he's fast.
Okay.
I don't want to give him too much love.
I knew you wouldn't, but it's real easy towards the end of a game when you're blowing a team out and they put in their second team or their first team's exhausted, and you put in fresh legs and the guy looks phenomenal, to give that guy too much credit. But at the same time, I'm like, man, Nazir just every time he got in looked great. And then Ingram Dawkins is a young guy who was pushing people around. I thought TID, as they call them sometimes, or at least I do, because I have a hard time saying Tyrion Ingram Dawkins. But I think either one of those guys could look really sharp.
Hey, that's a good question. What we got next?
Before we have some other questions I want to get to, but first I want to mention our friends over at Athens Ford. Right now they have about 200 vehicles in stock. I know it's tough to find cars right now if you're looking for a pre-owned vehicle or a new vehicle. I had a friend he's not in state. He lives out in Dallas, and he was complaining about the Texas dealerships out there. And I'm like, man, just fly here and drive it home. I got it for you. And he's actually on their website. He goes, this is a very good looking website because he realized that he can order one, and I'm like, yeah, you can do that at Ford, but the point being, you can actually go on there and you can customize a Ford vehicle and get it, the trim package you want, the style and all that stuff. So, but right now, if you need to drive or, you want to go to an actual dealership and test drive vehicles, it's tough to find them at other places, but Athens Ford has a ton of them. Like I said, right now it says 194 vehicles. They'll be up at 217. Other times in the year, they're over 1,000. So this is a place that always has them, but they're doing a fantastic job of actually getting inventory in. They turn it around fast. That's not going to be there long. So you need to check that website a lot. They do a great job keeping the website updated. So if you're looking for a specific make and model, just keep checking back with them. And if it's there, it's going to be on their website. And or just call up and tell one of their salesmen, say, hey, look, this is what I'm looking for. And they'll jump on and get it to you pretty fast. So they do a great job with that. And also to mention Dead Soxy. We told everybody, look, they had the UGASports promo. They got you 35% off anything on their website. We told you can actually get your logo put on socks and give those out to your potential clients, to your staff, to people in your company. They always got something going on, but right now, if you didn't get these for Father's Day and you got some crappy gift, do yourself a favor. Go to deadsoxy.com. Order the socks. You can get the Georgia socks. You can get their lounger socks. You get their boardroom socks. You can get their tie-dye ones. They have these all different styles. You get the no-shows that I wear every day just about. Check out deadsoxy.com. These are incredibly comfortable. You don't need to have crappy socks to make your feet hot on these hot summer days. And, be in something comfortable. Comfortable underwear, comfortable socks, comfortable shoes. The secret to life. So be sure at least you can knock off one of those with Dead Soxy. Hit them up when you get a chance. Do have some other questions we'll get to. Of course, there was
a good pick there. You got a good job, Dane.
Yeah. I do want to mention our friends that
Jaden Carter in there.
Ooh, man, those are big boys.
How about feeding them? I wonder what they had. Had some chicken. I guarantee they love that fried chicken.
Yeah, there's that.
All those players do.
Yep. Yeah, well, that's one of the things that's why Classics of the East does such a good job. And I'm sure there's a couple big old cows disappeared with that group.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I try to on this program is not give any inside scoop. Roddy gets on me about it, but I guarantee you, when I walk by that Bones place up there, that restaurant that we have, it's incredible what these guys eat. And then on the way out, they've got all these salads and sandwiches and fruit bars and protein bars, and make all kind of different kind of waters. I mean, if you can find something wrong with that, something's wrong with you. I'm just saying, God knows it's unbelievable.
We've actually had guys say that, when they come on a tour and they take them through the restaurant and they show them where they can do their own cooking and they learn that stuff. That has impressed a lot of mamas. Talking about,
yeah, I mean, they got a separate place right there where they learn how to cook. And then outside, they got the grills you just take out there and fix your own whatever you want to fix. So it's all, everything in that building is morale based. It's just good for morale.
P-Tech 1 said that he wanted it says rivals Adam Gorney is saying Texas is who Manning will be playing for. What say you? Before we get into that one, there's our buddy out in Dallas Dog says, how do you manage taking Eli Holston when Arch Manning is out there, Coach? Do you want a bird in the hand versus two in the bush? Do you take a kid now, or do you hold spots open? Riley says, what are your thoughts on Arch now that he has visited Texas? So a lot of Arch questions, Coach, and a lot of
I think in the case of Alabama, they've got to look at, after this year, unless they get a transfer, there's not the kid from Tennessee, the freshman, will be okay, but they don't have a loaded room, so they got to take two quarterbacks, and certainly Holstein is a good player, and I think that's why they made it clear to Arch. I'm sure that he's their number one guy, and if you're a number one guy, you're not too worried about who's there, unless the guy's a returning Heisman Trophy winner or something, but and certainly Bryce Young is going to be leaving, so that doesn't matter. So, but I think that's the way Nick did that as far as bird in the hand. And then as far as what Arch is going to do, the thing that really the telltale thing is who's your boss is going to be big, and I think we got a big advantage there. And Kirby's established over Texas guy. The supporting cast, certainly we got that because it's a question where, we were bagging on Texas last year. They probably got some good transfers and going to be better. But at the same time, the guy looks at, hey, I got a chance to come in there and play early and make my own mark. And, sometimes people take that on their own challenge, and you don't really know what they've talked to Cooper Manning, his dad, about as far as what they can do for them, the whole family financially. Even though they're in good shape, there's always, even the rich guys like good deals. So, who knows on that? I don't have a feel for it, mainly because there's just too much Texas talk for them not to be in on Texas. You know what I mean? So it's going to be between the two of us, I think, at this point. It's what everybody's saying.
Yeah, I want to mention they had an offensive tackle. I think he was Finnish, and now he's in Connecticut. Olaus Alanen. I'm sure I'm butchering his name, but he's a big offensive lineman. He's playing here in the States now. He came down for an official visit, and
kid from Finland.
Yes, sir.
That guy's the biggest guy. I thought Amarius Mims was big. This guy, Amarius Mims, looks like Roddy compared to Shaq. Compared to this guy, have you seen the picture of him sitting there with his family on Instagram?
I'm not.
That guy is huge. I'm talking about tree trunk, huge.
He's a big old boy. And Kirby.
What was he saying about recruiting? We were talking about
Kirby Smart was talking to him, and Mr. Alanen says he made a really big emphasis on that he's going to sign this big, long contract and stay there. There's going to be stability in that program and how they're going to develop you and get you ready to where you want to be. They're going to be able to win championships. So Kirby Smart's telling these guys, my contract's coming. It's going to be a long one. It's that stability. I'm going to be here. I'm sure they said the same thing to the Mannings. You don't have to worry about hot seat talk. You don't have to worry about this questions about development. They're going to say the same thing and say, look, the offensive coordinator, the 3 years you're going to be here, he'll be here, that sort of thing. So they are pitching that stability. I don't know which way he's going to. And we had I wound up speaking to a 2025 offensive lineman who is Arch Manning's left tackle, Brett Bordelon. And we talked for a long time, Coach, about Arch. And I said, okay, give me the inside scoop. What's going on with him? And the kid was very forthcoming. Brett's a very polite young man, very, very bright. And he said, look, I can tell you, he hasn't made a decision. There's no decision been made. If we made one, I'd know about it, But he hasn't. We've talked about playing together, and we talked about playing together at Texas, Georgia, Alabama. So I hit him up for insights constantly, and trying to get the inside scoop, and I'm decent at that.
There's none.
There's not a decision made, in my opinion.
More than likely, there's unless he just given a silent commit, but we've had. I know how good we felt about that kid from St. Louis, and he left here coming to Georgia, and then the next day he went to Missouri. You just never know.
Oh yeah, Luther Burden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got anything else? Getting close to time.
Here's the photo of Alaus.
Yeah, there's a big. You can see how big that boy is. That's a good photo. Look at that guy. I mean, come on.
Look at Del McGee. Del's like, damn.
I've never seen anybody that big here, but just for the any football fans out there, if you're got a chance today, be on Feinbaum and talk about Kirby in the program. So anytime I can do that, we're on at 4:00. If you don't have anything to do today, listen to the old coach again. You listen to me twice in one day, but we'll have a chance to bust up on a few of these other programs. So I'll always love to do that. But
you do take a few shots. I love it.
But I won't do it too bad. But realistically, though, if you look at the SEC and you talk about long-term ability of Kirby, in the past year, they fired a guy that won a national championship 2 years ago. They fired a guy, Gus Malzahn, who beat Alabama that year and paid him $21 million. They fired a guy, and Dan Mullen had been to 3 straight bowl games, New Year's bowl games, the next year after he just signed a long-term contract. So some of these schools are crazy. The way they do things so fast, but that's not going to happen. I don't mean that about Kirby, but I think anybody would have to think that he's about as good a situation as far as long-term as anybody.
Coach, you mentioned Feinbaum. I want to give a quick plug to you as well, because someone on the Dog Vent had asked me, hey, does Coach still do some of the speaking tours, doing corporate talks or team leadership, that kind of thing? And so off air, I asked you if that's something that I may have done it before, if you're still interested in. So if anyone.
Last year, Radi and I went to a couple of Bulldog clubs. We had a good time, and in both of those places, we predicted some things that might happen. They were just good as gold. But what I used to do is a lot of corporate things, where you talk about leadership and have fun talking to people like whoever it might be, different kinds of companies. But now that I'm by myself, I can travel a little better now by myself. So we'll see. But anyhow, good questions today. Really good questions. I enjoyed it.
I got a couple more for you, Coach, before we sign off real quick. CCUGA says, is Georgia really going to have 3 specialists on scholarship next year?
Looks like it. You don't run people off. Looks like we'll have the punter and Zirkle and Podlesny. Mm-hmm. That'll be true. The other thing I want to do is just want to tell our fans out there, we've got a lot of good supporters here that do so much for our program, and one that does about as much as and for the university as well is John Parker, and he just lost his wife Kay to a long battle of illness, and just want to remember him and his family at this point. And we're just so fortunate to have John as a supporter, and all the things that Kay did for Athens and the university, and just a tremendous family. And I want everybody out, and most people probably know about it, but everybody out there, let's remember John and his family in this time of deep mourning.
Yeah, our thoughts go out to Johnny and his whole family. The Georgia Athletic Directorship is named after his father. This is
yeah, that's right.
This guy is a gigantic donor to UGA, but he's not one of those guys that just writes a check. He is at baseball games. He is at tennis matches. He is at swim beats. He is constantly a true supporter. He does it financially and with his time, as did his family. So I've gotten to know John a little bit over the past couple of years. Phenomenal person, and I hated that his wife has passed. That's tough, but
smart guy too.
Yeah, it makes me feel pretty dumb every time I
better know what you're talking about when you start talking to him, because he can he knows about everything. But anyway, appreciate everybody tuning in. So good questions. So let's roll.
Folks, be sure to send in your questions next week. We'll get to them as well. When you get them in earlier, you stand a much better chance of getting them answered because we asked them at the beginning of the show. Tune in next Tuesday at noon. In the meantime, be sure to stop by our sponsors, of course, Academy Brewing Company, Athens Ford, Your Pie, and Dead Soxy. Check them out. And we really appreciate everybody tuning in. Hit the subscribe button and hit the share button on both of these, whatever format you're watching this, be it YouTube or Twitter or Facebook. We greatly appreciate it, and we will see you next week.